So I've always been interested in the origin story, Like if you listen to someone, what is it that brought them to our little corner of the internet where we discuss gaming news, industry discussions and everything like that, where we debate with one another about where things might go into the future. JVB is the person that we're going to be listening to today because I'm doing a video reaction for the first time on the channel. Yay. Okay. And he has put a podcast out. But before we kind of look at, what he's put out in this episode, I just want to say that this is a person that has been there since the original days. As it says right there, he's been podcasting since 2005, but he's been primarily doing that for Xbox, and kind of the Xbox world and Xbox gamers. He was there and he was so influential that at one point he literally went for a job. He considered moving and going to Redmond to work for Microsoft in the Xbox division, kind of customer relations and everything like that. So this is a person that has been living and breathing, not just this gaming world, but specifically the Xbox brand, has been kind of like very close to his heart, pretty much ever since he came out. He was one of the people who was originally on the forums, back when forums and everything like that was a thing. He's been podcasting for a long time and he's still podcasting to this day. So we're going to see a little bit of what he has to say in his most recent episode over here. Now, I don't like playing people's content just kind of like all the way through. So we're just going to take a few moments in the podcast where we're going to look at what he's saying. So if you see something that you hear something here, you like it, first of all the information is there on screen for you. And I'll do my best to actually link to this particular episode, in the description. But what I want to say is that go and listen to the whole thing. Go ahead, give the listen, give the like, give a follow, give whatever the platform needs to say that this was a great episode so that more people can hear it. Because it is great to have a voice that was just as passionate as anyone could be for the Xbox community, but that also has valid criticisms. It is good to have somebody that actually upholds, maintains, and recognizes your intelligence. So they speak to you intelligently. They speak to you as if you're a person that actually, wants to do some critical thinking, and they encourage you along that thought process. So without saying anything further, let me go forward. I'm not sure too much about the volume, so if it's a little bit low, forgive me, but I'll do my best not to talk over it. So just a few minutes or so, and I've sped it up just a little bit.
When let me rephrase this. When there's a comparison between PlayStation and Xbox when it comes to third party sales, it's always a unanimous this not unanimous decision, but the sales are unanimously in favor of the PlayStation side. And I'm not making this shit up, but if you were to listen to some of these prominent YouTubers that call themselves fans of video games or Xbox, they're going to tell you all types of shit and just they will brush over the truth and then create a narrative that will always favor the Xbox.
So there, that is one of the first things for me that kind of actually brought me into, I guess, just like wanted to speak at some point about what it is that was going on in the gaming, community and everything like that. Because you take a look at influencers like Destin Legary. Towards the beginning of this generation, Destin Legary used to have a fancy little hand graph. And what that hand graph was supposed to signify is that the PlayStation 5 sales were going to start and they were going to kind of shoot and accelerate very, very straight away out of the gate because they were working off of that PlayStation 4 momentum. But then eventually, I guess by middle of the generation, kind of where we are now, they were going to taper off. And then eventually towards the end of the generation, they were going to experience kind of a plateau, not a flat line, but a bit of a plateau. They were going to round off in sales. So, you kind of had this trajectory with this exponential growth and then a much more linear and much more reduced, progression all the way to, let's say, 100 million units. Now, by comparison, Xbox was going to start off a little bit slower, but then it was going to come up and then eventually, boom, it was going to hit the same point. So at the end of the generation, through his hand jutsu somehow, right? Xbox was going to get to about 100 million sales too. So he was saying that both consoles were going to sell about evenly. Now, this sounds like a very pleasant fairy tale, but even back then, when I was just coming into this kind of like gaming discussion thing, I was like, where on earth are you getting this sense from? Like, what is tingling your spider sense to make you think this could even be a reality? given the fact of the abysmal lack of games that were going to be present for the launch of the Xbox. But no, it was always that, somehow, some way, people were either going to see the value in Game Pass, or people were going to see that they just bought Bethesda, because again, he was still doing his little hand jutsu when they got Bethesda. He was still doing it pretty much, I think, when they got Activision. He still hadn't let it go of this notion that Xbox was supposed to sell this much. But this was a fairy tale. This was a fairy tale from day one. You didn't need to be Nostradamus or to have a genie in your pocket to tell you that that was never going to happen. Because how is it that you saw what PlayStation was offering, right? From the get go, they had games, they had amazing blockbuster games. Regardless of whether you think cross generational counts or not, the point is the games were there and the games were great. And then you see this competitor that already has a weaker momentum coming off from a much poorer generation, but then doesn't even begin with the games, you know? And Xbox influencers just refuse. And I'm not just talking about Destin Legary, I'm talking about everybody. I remember many episodes of Unlocked where they had and I mean podcast Unlocked, the Xbox one from IGN, I think. They just had fantasy, just pure fantasy running through the podcast where Xbox was ahead and it was this and it was that. And for a period of time, you couldn't say anything back to them because the chip shortage hit PlayStation so much that whatever sales they were going to have, so let's say that they were going to have 10 million sales in the first year, well, if that reduced to 5 million, and that was already the 5 million that Xbox was going to have, like, yes, it hit them both, but it completely curbed the progress of PlayStation far more than it impacted the progress of Xbox. So for a while there, they were kind of trading back and forth as to who was selling out the most because it came from the manufacturing constraints. So you couldn't even tell them, like, you tried to tell them, like, no, this is a temporary reality. This is because of the state of the world, and it is not what truly the market is wanting to do. But no, it was Series S's are selling out because people just want a next generation platform of some kind. And I was like, no, like a consumer isn't this dumb that they think that a Series S is going to somehow equate to PlayStation 5 so that as long as you get an S, you are now in the next generation. But in any case, the point is this, and I think JVB's point is this. These people came forward and they were Xbox influencers and they just completely lied and they told fairy tales about what it is that was going to happen. And I think he reinforces this point a little bit on. So now we're going to rejoin, his podcast and we're going to listen about the 80-minute mark or so.
Who wants to hear this garbage? Because if they didn't, you would see these content creators change their tune really quick.
That's
if
100% facts.
To tell the truth, they will do it. But unfortunately, they get their little donations on their streams. They have Phil Spencer and Aaron Greenberg on their Twitter friends list. And now they're fucking big shit in their own minds. So, this is why Xbox is where they're at. Because the people in charge of Xbox encouraged this behavior and partook in this behavior.
So we're going to pause it right there because this is another point that I wanted to make. So many gamers are unhappy with Jim Ryan. Not because Jim Ryan did not deliver the results, clearly he did. There's no way to assess Jim Ryan's performance and not be amazed by the numbers and the facts, data, and statistics because the numbers don't lie and the numbers don't care for your feelings. You can say that, oh, this person should have bought more of this or more of that. You can absolutely do that. But the point is, what he did bring, the market decided was worthy of the tremendous amount of support. This has been by far the most successful PlayStation launch pretty much since the original one, right? And so they do not like Jim Ryan, not because of his performance, but because he isn't Phil Spencer. And who is Phil Spencer? Phil Spencer is, in short, a nice guy. I fully believe that Phil Spencer is a nice guy. I think that if Phil Spencer and I sat across from the gaming industry, there's lots that he could teach me. There's lots that we would agree on. There's lots of love that he has for this particular, business and everything like that. And I think he truly cares. But he is a terrible leader. And he's a terrible leader because he bought into their own, like he bought the Kool-Aid, like he bought into the fantasy. And he helped create that fantasy because the legitimacy that a lot of these Xbox influencers experience comes from the fact that they can tell you legitimately that they play games with Phil Spencer, that they hang out with Phil Spencer, that they got Phil Spencer's personal number, that they can just send him an email, send him a message, and they fully expect, because it's happened in the past and it keep happening in the future, that Phil Spencer, directly the CEO of Microsoft Gaming, is going to reply to them. He has made himself so accessible to these people that there is a feedback loop going on. Phil Spencer does something that is, let's say, that is questionable as to how it actually helps the Xbox console. But then these influencers will come out and then they will defend and they will praise it and they will tell you and they will twist and turn it until you are supposed to see it in a positive light. And then Phil Spencer would look at their content that is basically propaganda, and then he will support it and he will believe in it, believing that he's, let's just say, at base, it is a questionable decision, that it is actually a genius because he sees the content and then they give him the feedback loop and then he takes that and he goes on to the next podcast and then he tells you about how this or that said this and that. And so we're seeing from the community this positive feedback. And then these guys take it and then it's more credit and validation. It is this incestuous feedback loop where they are in cahoots with one another. And Xbox, as a leadership team, is completely to blame for this. Because it's not just Phil Spencer, it is Aaron Goodberg, it is Matt Booty, it is all of these people, like really like top pillars of what Microsoft Gaming is, that are making themselves available to these influencers in a way that is super questionable and in a way that gives them negative feedback, not negative feedback in the terms that they're actually being critical or that I tell them that, hey, this isn't right, but negative feedback in that it makes their thinking about their gaming industry and direction worse because they are seeing a false reality because these influencers are propagating that false reality and then they are buying their own bullshit, you know? And so it becomes this circular, kind of like forever, like spinning wheel where unfortunately, we just keep going in lower and lower quality of decisions that are happening for the Xbox. Nowadays the modern thing, the thing that is right now, the mode du jour is to say the industry is pivoting. The industry, I have an article here from Destin Legary that is basically saying that it's not just Xbox that is rethinking console exclusives. Like there is this notion now that the industry is changing because why? Phil Spencer said so. So Phil Spencer realizes that he's part of the industry, the part that he actually owns Xbox, right? That's not doing anything. So then he says that he has to change. But in order to spin it, he says that the industry has to change. So these influencers that take this message, at first they question it. Like you guys were here 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, where it was basically it was pandemonium on the Xbox side because they did not receive this message well. It wasn't as smooth a handoff as they are typically used to. You have people like Tim Dog who are more upset not at what the message is, but at the fact that he was caught blindsided. And that is the thing that really disillusioned him with the rest of the Xbox, propaganda. And that's why he now comes out and speaks against it. But if you really listen between the lines, it's not the fact that the propaganda existed. It is the fact that he wasn't aware that this was the direction it was going to go. So this time they fumbled the baton. It's like they are always running in this kind of what's that race where you have to pass the baton, all the time. But that's what Xbox does. They come up with a message out of the gate, which is somehow twisting the truth, and then they pass the baton onto the influencers, and then these guys put in their laps, and then eventually Phil Spencer comes out, runs besides them, and then they hand over the baton again. And it's this kind of feedback loop that they keep doing again and again and again. But this time they fumbled the passing of the baton and they dropped it, and Tim Dog felt like he was kind of left in the lurch. And that's what really made him feel like, you know what, I want to get off this field. I've been running this for 10, 15 years, essentially coming up with lies and propaganda and twisting things here and reshaping things there and putting a narrative around this and all of that for nothing. So, Phil Spencer and his leadership team are a huge part to blame in it. It's not just that Destin Legary gets to make his little fake hand graph It's the fact that Phil Spencer never goes to him and he said, "Hey, listen, Destin, I know that you want to see the best for the Xbox brand, but right now we do not have the capacity, we do not have the games out, we do not have the output necessary to make that thing that you're talking about come true in a real way this generation. Like we still at the building phase, we are clawing back our mind share and our statistics and our presence in gaming from what we lost before. So don't be going out there and putting together unrealistic handjutsu as to how we are somehow going to scale back up to where Sony is because Sony hasn't fumbled in a while. But no, instead, they just eat the same BS that is fed by them, that originated from them, and that is exactly why it is that we are now here. Now, I want to move on to the next part over here, and I think it happens around the 25-minute mark. Sorry about this times being imprecise, but let's take a further listen.
I would not like to see that, me personally. There's something about having a choice of consoles. Because regardless, it's just the law of average. There will come a time where the next Xbox or the Xbox brand itself, there could come a time where that brand has another, uh, it has its next 360 moments, Xbox 360 moments. There's a chance of average, right? The law of average, eventually, just like a sine wave, right? You have your ups and downs. There could be that upswing for the Xbox. And then the PlayStation can have a lull.
So we're going to take a pause there because I think that this is a really great point. This is why I've always said, I've said it so many times to especially J-Dub. I'm like, not especially J-Dub because I'm trying to correct him, but especially J-Dub because I have said it in his presence. Um, Xbox cannot allow you to let go of the console. It just cannot be done. It cannot be done. The console is, to these companies, first and foremost, one of the most accessible storefronts in your house. Think about how many companies want to be in your house, in your living room, especially. That's why they give you all of the Google Assistants and the Series and especially Amazon. Amazon wants the Echoes to be everywhere. That's why those devices are so cheap. All of you know that those Echo products are way too cheap for what they are. But what do they want you to do? They want you to be able to say, like, hey, Amazon, go ahead and buy me this thing, buy me my toilet paper right now or make the order right now. They want you to get used to that kind of reality and that kind of future. They want that storefront in your home. That's why the Google Assistants, that's why the Amazons, that's why the Series, that's why all of those devices are there. The smart devices that give you access to some kind of storefront, whether that's digital with iTunes or whether that is Amazon that actually will deliver physical products to you. That's what they want. They want access to your living room. Think about it. Who is already there though? Who has already kind of broken through the, I guess, cultural zeitgeist to be like, yeah, I have this particular storefront in my living room. Consoles. Like whether you have the Nintendo Switch, whether you have the PlayStation, whether you have the Xbox, these are storefronts that you pretty much expect to be in a home. If you go to some kind of friend, friend's house, or a friend's friends of a friend or a cousin of a son-in-law, and you see an Xbox there, you have no, like, that is basically just standard living room furniture now. Even though these are digital devices that have storefront associated with them, this is in a way that if you saw an Amazon, like Echo Show, the tablet, and you see that someone's kitchen, you're gonna be like, oh, you have that. Okay, what's that about? Oh, what do you use it for? Oh, this or that. You will have questions about why it is that they allow this thing in their home, and they'll be like, oh yeah, we can order, extra milk from there really easily. We just say, hey, Amazon, give me, milk tomorrow, and that will just creates the order. But the point is, we have now become to the fact where consoles are transparent storefronts. When people come in and they are not even gamers and they see a PlayStation in my house because it is quite prominently, part of my entertainment center, nobody gives me a second thought about it. Nobody gives me another question about it. If there was some other device, like imagine if it was like a let's say an Uber Eats dedicated app, appliance that I can order from directly on Uber. People will be asking me like, "Oh, why do you have this Uber thing? Why don't you just use your phone? Why don't you use this?" There will be some kind of cultural barrier to having this particular storefront in your house. So again, for this and this reason alone, forget about all of the gaming stuff. Microsoft cannot let go of an already culturally accepted storefront. Now, do you guys realize how valuable that space is in your house in one of the most prominent places? If it's in your bedroom, hey, cool, one thing, right? That's cool, that's nice, that's intimate. But that's just one room. No, the living room is the room used by everybody at home. It's used by every single guest. It is so valuable as an ad spot because if your guest comes to the house and sees like a really cool accessories under your TV, that could be a soundbar, that could be a projector, that could be whatever it is that you have there. They could be like, oh wow, what's that? Oh, maybe I should get one. It's so important. It's such a valuable spot. Besides your own pocket, in your phone and everything, which Microsoft gave up on, it is what it is. But this is like the next most valuable thing because not everybody's going to have computers, not everybody's going to have laptops, not everybody's going to have tablets, but a lot of people are going to have either a child that games, a friend that games, a housemate that games, or they themselves are gamers. But guess what? If they've got that in the living room, everybody in the house is exposed to that particular device. And I just think that they are never going to let that go. And another thing, going way right back to what JVB was talking about, the fact that we have a situation where the law of averages could swing your way again. Listen, if Xbox keeps making hardware, which I fully believe they should do, and powerful console hardware, none of this middling, like, oh, you're going to be somehow, except that you are not going to compete with the PS5. I don't believe in that. I know that Portorock believes that they need to go and take a different lane that is slightly different from what PlayStation is doing. But I think the opposite. I think they need to keep on the fight and the pressure. And I think that this time they need to come up with a much more powerful console than the next PlayStation. Like just really like unequivocally more powerful. Like let's do talk about, like 20 frames difference or upwards to 8K or whatever it is that is going to be a tangible, undeniable, way more powerful box. Because if you do that, then what JVB is talking about, the law of averages, could potentially happen. Like you could have an upswing. This notion, this defeatist attitude that Phil Spencer has, where he says that, oh, we lost the worst generation that it was to lose because people will in digital libraries and blah 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 blah. That's weak made. That's bitch made stuff. That is not true. If you have the games and you have the hardware and that intersection and your messaging is clear, you are going to see that upswing. Maybe it might not be enough to catch up, to get the Henjutsu and catch up to where the PlayStation is going to be, but it could be enough to set you up for the next one, and that could be your massive, gains. That's where your massive gains could happen. Because the truth is, people just want great games. And if those are going to be on your console, they are not going to care if they have to buy a second console or a second device. They are going to find a way to play that game. Yes, you offer it everywhere else, but there are going to be certain people that truly value the console experience, and those people will find a way to buy your console, especially if you can tell them that it is either just as powerful or hopefully even more powerful than your competition. So I just think that at the end of the day, we need to keep that in mind. Things could swing around for the Xbox, but only if they are willing to stay in the fight. If you give up, you are never going to be able to get there. So again, this notion to me that Xbox will somehow let go of the power dynamic, let go of the console, let go of this to go for some streaming handheld hybrid, not as a companion to the console, but as the main thing. Nah, I refuse to believe in that reality. I could be wrong, but typically, I like to think that I've got a good batting record. I like to toot my own horn. Okay, let's continue.
into the equation for some reason. And this is where you get the people who will be on top of the Xbox when something wrong happens, especially to its content creators, to its influencers. That's where you get all the trolling. That's where you see the people jumping on Phil Spencer and the rest of the trolls. And I'm not calling Spencer a troll, but you know what I mean.
Okay, this is the part I want to talk about.
had Xbox gone, and I remember the Xbox 360 when the big slogan was "Jump in." They even had an old breakdancing song, and they had a bunch of people. And this is the commercial. They had a bunch of people doing double dutch, and I believe the song is Apache. So, of course, me being from, being born in the '70s, I recognized the song. It was a big breakdance song. A lot of b-boys, would battle, and seeing these people jumping rope doing double dutch, it kind of felt like that. So instantly, I was attached to that commercial. I was like, oh shit, they're playing a great song. They have double dutch. This is like from my era, and the slogan was "Jumpin'."
So I love that moment that he's describing there, because that moment was a moment where Xbox was focused on Xbox. And I think that's the final thing I want to say coming off of his podcast. There was a point in time when Xbox was perfectly capable, was perfectly enough in and of itself to entice you with what they were offering you. They were never talking to you about PlayStation, good or bad. They were never talking to you about this or that. They just was like, hey, here are the great games that we have. Come in, jump in. Like that's it. It wasn't, jump in, but don't buy this, or no, you can go and you don't even need a console. No, it wasn't that. And I feel like not only did Xbox lose sight of that, but the community lost sight of that. With Xbox, take a look at the marketing around the Series X, right? It was the world's most powerful console. That is putting it in direct contrast to your competition. You cannot be the world's most powerful console if there's no other console for you to be compared to. Then you are just the world's console, right? Or the world's only console. In which case, you wouldn't need to highlight it. But where were the games? Where were the great experiences that were going to get you to jump in? They were not present and they were not there. You take a look now at the influencers, right? The people who are supposed to be championing the Xbox brand. And what do they try to do a lot of the time? Oh, it's the industry. Oh, it's PlayStation. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's Nintendo. Oh, it's that. Oh, it's PC gaming. They are focused on everything but the Xbox. Nowadays, the new hope is that somehow Xbox is going to put Steam as a storefront available on the console somehow, some way, someone. Okay, even if they did, is that focusing on Xbox? No. Okay, what's the next thing? The industry is changing. We keep hearing that. Oh my goodness, it bores me. I hear that. But the industry is changing. The industry is changing to follow in the footsteps of Microsoft, which is last place in gaming. Do you know that it doesn't matter who you add to the equation? Microsoft is always last place in gaming? Okay, cool. Microsoft versus Sony in gaming. You know what? Let's be fair. Xbox versus PlayStation in gaming. Xbox is last place. Okay. Xbox versus PlayStation versus Nintendo Switch in gaming. Xbox is last place. Okay. Xbox versus PlayStation versus Nintendo Switch versus mobile gaming. Xbox is last place. Okay. Xbox versus PlayStation versus Nintendo Switch versus PC versus mobile gaming, and versus Steam. I kind of messed that one up. But the point is, Xbox is last place. So you see that they are always last. So why is the entire industry going to follow the guy that isn't just third or fourth or fifth? They are just last. It's just easier to say that Xbox is last place and you just be done with it, because it doesn't matter who you think the competition is. They are just last place in comparison to that. So, but what you have is you have these influencers that just keep saying, there you go, here we are. The industry is changing. To turn around and follow what Microsoft is doing. And then you have the ones that want to play the whataboutism against PlayStation, which of course, I love it. Listen, PlayStation and Xbox are two sides of the same coin. We are allowed to look at and examine both sides of that coin to determine what is going on in each. Perfectly fine. But when you have people pointing to you and telling you that the portal is dumb and VR is failing and this is that and that is this and there are not enough first party exclusive games on PlayStation and everything, cool, 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 cool. Fair enough. Great criticism. Love it. But what part of that is Xbox. Now, where are you focused on Xbox? You know, for me, I have plenty of criticism about Xbox. Of course, I do. Like I said, they're both parallel coins. But when it comes to improving what PlayStation is offering, I won't be talking to you about Xbox. I've already said for me, what I want from PlayStation, yeah, in terms of a solid improvement, is I want 4 games per studio per generation. That's my simple rule of thumb. I want you to within a generation, let's say that's about 8 or 9 years, right? I want you to have released 4 games from every studio. No, sorry, 4 games per studio per gen. So that means at Naughty Dog, I want 4 games. Now for them, they have about 5 years left. I want 4 games. So that means that you have to get 4 games. From Sony Bend, I want 4 games. From Insomniac, I'm pretty sure they've already delivered 4 games, or Wolverine will be number 4. So they cleared the bar. From Gorilla, I need 3 more games. You deliver Forbidden West, cool. I need 3 more from you. From Naughty Dog, I need 3 more games. Sorry, not from Naughty Dog. From Sony Santa Monica, I need 3 more games. Every single studio on the PlayStation, I think it will be for me the right cadence. 4 games, that means about a game every 2 years, okay? Per studio, per generation. Do you see how that is PlayStation focused? That is not saying what the industry should do. That is not saying what Xbox should do. When it comes to actually things that I want as a PlayStation gamer and I demand more, it's a PlayStation focused thing. When it comes to what I want from the PlayStation 5 specifically, I want smarter things done in the UI. There's just a few options that are buried in the settings that should really be at the forefront. The fact also that we have game lists and you cannot put your game lists and you cannot pin them to the home screen, that should be at the forefront. When it comes to the fact that there's no version of Quick Resume, Quick Resume is the one feature I will always say it from the Xbox side that I wish PlayStation would implement because it is a powerful feature. And even if you say that, Xbox doesn't do it the best because sometimes it glitches out, whatever it is, when PlayStation does it, I would want it to work flawlessly, even if it is just rotating between 2 games, instead of 5 or 8 or whatever it is. So, again, when it is that it is time for me to actually critique PlayStation and things that I want from PlayStation, I'm talking about PlayStation specific things. When it comes to this PlayStation roadmap, this idea that somehow we're supposed to get a showcase because we want to see far into the future, I've always said I want games that are going to be announced officially and released officially within an 18-month period. That is a that is a PlayStation focused thing. That's what I want from PlayStation. From the rest of the industry, I don't really care. Like I just expect that Ubisoft is always gonna fuck up. EA is always gonna disappoint me. And so on and so forth. Like Nintendo is never gonna be for me. So but from PlayStation specifically, I want you to officially announce and officially release a game within an 18-month time frame. I don't want to know about games that are coming in 5 years or 6 years or 7 years. I don't think that does anything for me as a gamer. It's something that I've said many times before. But going back to the podcast for one last time, you have a lot of people who, instead of focusing on what Xbox should do, these influencers are focusing on many ways to point out the flaws in other or the perceived flaws in other platforms in order to make Xbox look good. But the thing is, that doesn't make your product better. That just makes your product, you know, it just creates another false reality. It is distracting. It is saying that yes, my house is on fire, but your house has an open candle that you have not blown out. And it's like, but it's a birthday candle. We're blowing the cake. Well, yeah, well, that could burn it down. Yeah, like, and you're like, but shouldn't you like put out the fire at your house? No, 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 no. It's fine. It's fine. We actually like it warm. It's the middle of winter. So think about it. I don't have to pay for home heating. But you're like, oh, but your house is on fire though. Don't you want to do something about it? No, no. You guys have an open candle over there, and that's very dangerous. You should be really careful about what's gonna happen. And it's like, but we're about to blow it out. It's a birthday can we're celebrating. It's just like, hey, listen. At the end of the day, I want to thank JVB for his podcast. Okay, so here he is on Twitter. Like I said, I'm not sure if I said it. But I will add the link to this particular podcast and in the description of the video. So yeah, there it is at JV Better Photos. Go follow him. give him a listen to his podcast and everything like that. And if you guys actually enjoy me doing kind of like these reactions to pieces of content that people put out, let me know in the comments. Perhaps I can do more in the future. Okay, that's enough talking. I feel like I only listened to maybe 2 or 3 minutes of the podcast in this particular video, and yet I've created another 40-minute piece of content. I talk too much, don't I? It's a little bit okay, not too much, but I do like to express my thoughts loquaciously. Let's be generous. Okay, I'm done. I need to go eat. You guys have a great day, so have fun.